This show is brought to you in conjunction with our partners over at racingpicks.com. This website is picking up steam, folks. Matt Bernier is on a tear. He's giving out long shots like crazy. And this is no 900 number tout service situation. It's all free. You just have to go to the racingpicks.com site and sign up for the expert picks, and you'll get columns from the likes of Matt Bernier, Andrew Champagne, and myself. I'm going to be writing a little thing about Oaks Day over there that I'm really looking forward to. Free picks and analysis, racingpicks.com. Check it out. Hello and welcome to this week's RacingPicks.com podcast. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, coming to you from the Degenerate Flophouse in Saratoga once again. And in a normal year, tomorrow would be Travers Day. Very strange to say. That one's in the rear view, and we are just days away from this year's Kentucky Derby. And hey, I've got the shirt to prove it. I guess this was a gift. Well, I don't guess. This was a gift from my mom, and I guess it was her way of saying that she thinks I look pretty in pink. Maybe I do. Happy to be here with you. Happy to be joined today by three great guests talking about races on Saturday. We'll kick things off with Nick Tammaro returning to the show. He's going to be talking about Naira. We'll look at the Saranac and then the late pick 5. Then we've got Drew Coatney. We'll see what happens in this week's head-to-head with Drew. We'll be talking about the late pick 4 up at Woodbine. Last but not least, we've got Tyler Hoffman. Very excited to have him on the show. Sharp young horse player talking all about Del Mar. And we'll get on with it right after our first message. One more quick note for you all. We've got a ton of cool content coming up for this year's Kentucky Derby. Best way to keep track of it might just be to sign up for our In the Money Players newsletter. You simply go to inthemoneypodcast.com/email. Put your email address in there, and you'll get regular updates about everything going on the In the Money site. And we're eventually going to expand it and start including some new content for email subscribers only as well. So you might as well sign up today, inthemoneypodcast.com/email. First up on this week's RacingPicks.com Players Podcast, we're going to bring in a guest who's familiar to most viewers and listeners, known as one of the sharpest guys around, a member of the Beyer Speed Figure team. You can also read his work over at stevebick.com, chronicling Saratoga daily. Nick Tammaro, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me.
It's you are in. You look like this is a road game for you. I'm just going to say, based on the curtains in back of you. Where are you at in the world?
This is a road game, so I'm in Austin. Had to make plans. Had to make a decision hastily on Tuesday about the impending Hurricane Laura, and when it looked like Houston could be in the crosshairs, I went ahead and planned on bringing my wife and daughter to Austin. So here we are, and it turned into a little vacation.
That's making the best of a scary situation. We're wishing everybody the best in Texas and Louisiana, of course, dealing with the effects and after effects of this storm. Hopefully we'll get through it okay. We're here today to talk about Saratoga, though, specifically some of the racing on Saturday. We're going to do a little bonus coverage. It says there on the screen we're talking about the Saratoga late pick 5, but I think it would be a host fail if I didn't at least ask you your opinion about this year's Grade 3 Saranac, which goes as, I think it's the third race on the card. Nick, did you have any opinion, any strong opinion in this one? I thought there might be an opportunity to get a little bit creative.
Yeah, I think the cloud that's literally and figuratively that's lingering over this card is the poor weather forecast. And that might, of course, alter the surface on which this race is run. And I think that actually helps the horse that I like in the 4 L'Imperator. And I know that I don't want to be the token, I'm taking the Euro in a race where the American horses look somewhat moderate, but I'm taking the Euro in a race where the American horses look somewhat moderate. And L'Imperator actually, in digging through his PPs from France, he actually faced some okay horses. The second horse last time, Menson Ernst, came back and won his next start, was actually placed in a listed race. So, they're probably listed types at best. Definitely not group caliber, but he's run on wet turf pretty consistently. And you'd have to think that Lasix is a a reason why he's over here, at least part of it. So I thought he made a lot of sense. Obviously boggy turf courses have a tendency to work in favor of horses who can be forwardly placed. I thought Don Juan Kitten was very good last time. He was working well coming into that race, ran an excellent race, stalked behind a runaway leader, took over, and held off some good horses, including Lonesome Fugitive from Chad Brown's barn, and next out winner King Meister. Of course, King Meister ended up winning on the dirt, but I thought that was a solid performance. One other horse worth mentioning for me is Irish Mia's, who comes out of the Jersey Derby, and that's a race that's common amongst 3 horses in here. And one thing I would say is watch the replay of the Jersey Derby. You're going to be amazed at, first of all, the ride that was given to Vanzi. Some of Paco Lopez's best work in his whole career, saved every inch of ground, never left the wood coming up the inside to win the race. But Irish Mia's was wide and trying to rally into a moderate pace that day. I thought maybe with a bit better setup, he could make some noise at a price.
Great notes, and I say that out of great self-interest because you actually highlighted the same 3 horses I was going to talk about. So Irish Mia, to me, very, very interesting in the 3rd start as a gelding, and I just felt like you can conjure the excuses, maybe being a little stuck behind the slow pace last time, maybe needing the race before, and L'Imperator, obviously going out for the Chad Brown powerhouse. And the only additional note I have there is I like the look of the workout 2 back with Noor Sahara, who I thought ran a winning race in the Della Rose. We'll have to see what happens with the weather. What is your best? You're pretty good at this game. What is your best guess? You're assuming this will get run on boggy turf, or do you think this one could get taken off?
No, Naira is very, very reluctant to take graded stakes off the turf. So the good thing about the only issue that you could have here is that this race and the Sword Dancer are both run on the inner. And so there may not be a situation where these 2 races can only be run on the inner. So this is one of those where if we were at Belmont or something, you'd probably see one on the inner, one on the Widener, but there is no Mellon turf option for this race. So obviously if one of the 2 graded stakes on turf gets taken off, it's going to be this one, but I think they'll do pretty much everything they can to run it. I think it was part of the rationale for why it's so early in the card. It makes no sense otherwise because it's a super competitive race, and you would think that it would be in a pick 5 sequence where we have a 2-year-old race loaded with first-time starters. So I think that was probably part of the thinking.
That makes a ton of sense. Very, very astute analysis there. Let's move on to this late pick 5. It starts off with graded stakes action in the form of the Grade 2 Amsterdam, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. I was super impressed with Yaupon last time, and I think Yaupon's going to take a lot of beating this time. I especially like the fact that this one has won on the engine, but also shown the ability to sit just off in case Saez wants to go crazy on long weekend. I still think Rosario might be able to flop outside and get an okay trip. I'm all about Yaupon in here. How do you see it, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the edge that Yaupon possesses, is that he can probably take a little bit back off of it and stalk. And it looks as if long weekend, and to an extent, I think it'll be interesting to see how aggressively both Premier Star and Wonder where Craig is. Of course, he's the producer of this podcast. So now that he's not in our shot, we can wonder where Craig is. But Wonder Where Craig is was ridden very, very aggressively last time, and Premier Star as well. And they both have a ton of speed. So this thing could get pretty quick. And Yaupon having Joel Rosario, I think, is such a bonus because he's so astute when it comes to off the pace types. I think he's clearly the horse to beat. I think a lot of people will probably end up singling him. I think the bloom is off of Long Weekend's Rose. I thought that Long Weekend was really supposed to win the Gold Fever, and I don't think that Jose Ortiz gave him every chance, but I didn't really like the race that he ran. And now coming back in a race where it looks like he's going to be hard-pressed to get the lead, I'm willing to take a bit more of a stand. I've been in the camp of people that have felt like Basin has needed a cutback badly for quite some time. I wish it was 7 rather than 6. But this is a horse that wants to go one turn. I think he wants to sprint, and ultimately this will be his game. The ceiling today might just be a second-place finish behind Yaupon, but I think that Basin is going to run well, and I'm going to use 1-2 in my pick 5s as ace.
Let's move on to our 8th race. It is the Grade 1 Forego. We're looking, of course, at 7 furlongs on the dirt track. Nick, how do you see this one? Are you imagining this is going to be something at the top of the market, or do you think we can get a price in here?
I think the top of the market is going to be 3-1 or so. So, I think it's actually a kind of a good race. Not a lot of true Grade 1 competitors, but I don't think that matters all that much. It's very, very competitive. There isn't an abundance of pace, But of course, in American dirt racing now, there's never an abundance of pace. So we're going to fight our way through it. I like two horses in particular. I think they'll probably end up being the second and third choices, maybe even the first and third choices, something like that. I like Funny Guy and Complexity. I think Funny Guy's coming into this race really, really nicely. I don't want to read too much into jockey assignments, but I would imagine that the mount on Whitmore was Joel Rosario's for the taking. I think it's super interesting he took Funny Guy. And, I think the sign of a really sharp and informed horse is when they break well and they get into the bridle early. And boy, I know it was against New York breds, but in that John Morrissey, Funny Guy was just, he was like a powder keg the whole way around there. He was so strong from start to finish, and he ended up beating some pretty quality horses, some horses who've also been competitive against open company, specifically my boy Tate and T Loves a Fight, who both came back and ran fine in the Tail of the Cat last week. So Complexity is a horse that I think they've been trying to figure out what the ideal distance is because he's already a Grade 1 winner at a mile. Obviously, this is a huge race for him, given that if he can tack on a Grade 1 win as a 4-year-old with that one as a juvenile, then he's worth significantly more money. And I think he's coming into it the right way off a bit of a break. He was very, very good in that allowance win last time. Drew a nice post, but stalked well and really always looked like a winner. So those two are my main focus. Only one more I want to mention is Win Win Win, who I've also been wanting to cut back for quite some time. He got into a little traffic trouble last time, still finished well at a mile. I think the 7/8 hits him right between the eyes.
I'm with you on all three, really, but I was going to highlight two longer prices to talk about, and Win 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 was one of them, who I felt like that trip had a couple of notable spots of trouble, both at the break and then and then again in the lane, and then just the idea that maybe this is what this horse wanted to do all along, and right. I think the double-figure price may come to fruition. So Win Win Win, definitely on my list, but my technical top pick, and this is one that I'm asking for a different result than what we've seen the last couple of times. I want Lexitonian to behave in the gate and actually break away from there, and maybe he can run a more complete race. I mean, Dynamics definitely favored last time in that the poor break didn't hurt the horse in the sense of that late run with the race falling apart late. I get that. In a sense, I feel like he's flattered, but and if he came back and was one of the favorites, I'd be skeptical. But again, at maybe a 8 or 10 to 1 type of a price, maybe this horse can break and show some of that run, throughout the race, run a complete race instead of just running on through the lane. Can you see Lexitonian at all in the spot, or are you tired of the gate antics?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hold the bad gate antics against him. He was breaking from the rail in both of those, the situation at Saratoga and then again at Del Mar. So it might just be something that is a passing thing. I'm probably president of the Jack Sisterson fan club. So I think Jack Sisterson does an amazing job and continues to. And he's moved all of these Calumet horses up. I actually bet True Timber last time, first time Sisterson, and he just ran into a really strong field that day. So I don't want to hold that performance against him too much. But I actually thought all of his horses had a look. Everfast would be a little bit of a stretch to me. But yeah, I mean, I think Lexitonian, the interesting thing about him, of course, is what you're alluding to is him breaking better from the gate. That's going to make him more forwardly placed. And that's going to be a good thing in here. He has a lot of speed, and I think he can keep them honest early, and that would help.
So, yeah, a few good ideas there, hopefully, in the forego. Let's move on to the Grade 1 Sword Dancer, 1.5 miles on what may end up being turf with cut in the ground. And I like a horse in here, and I don't think wet will be an issue for number 5, Corelli. I thought this horse ran really well in the UN, breaking not well and losing to an absolutely perfect trip winner in Aquaphobia. The other thing I like about this one is the Jonathan Thomas barn was pretty cold at that time and has shown some real signs of life in the last week, winning a race up here and 2 at Monmouth. Corelli, I feel like, might be a little bit underrated by the market because the Euro form isn't like the typical Euro form we see coming over here from group races. This is handicap form, but it's really good handicap form. I feel like Corelli could offer a little bit of a price as an alternative to the favorites in the Sword Dancer. How did you see it, Nick?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you want to look for alternatives. I think that, with all due respect to Cross Border and Sadler's Joy and Channel Maker and these horses that seem like they've battled it out every 4 weeks or so, I think you're looking for an alternative. And I actually liked both Corelli and Pedro Cara, who to me are the two main alternatives. for a marathon turf race, it looks like it should have some legitimate speed, pace, I should say. There's not really much speed amongst them. But Pedro Cara fits the profile of a long distance turf horse I think that you'd want in this barn, in that Graham Motion has had him for quite a while. And he's been training him really all the way since the beginning of the year. And since I guess he came back from Saudi. So the Fairhill work tab is extensive. I always think about main sequence in this scenario, as Graham Motion got him early in the season, and I believe in 2014, and he ended up winning everything in sight. And this is the kind of horse that has already run well with Lasix, gets Lasix again. And he just made the most sense to me of horses that would be alternatives. Look, I mean, I'm not going to lose a pick 5 to Sadler's Joy, but I'm not in any big rush to use him or to key on him or anything like that. I think that we know what he is, and he's just sort of Sadler's Joy.
What do you make of Aquaphobia? Was last time the time?
I think so. I don't think he's going to get any better with an additional furlong. I know that might be splitting hairs a little bit, but he had everything go perfectly. It kind of surprised me. I have a ton of respect for Mike Maker training distance turf horses, so I used him, but I was very surprised he got the 11 furlongs. So I don't know. Maybe a soft pace and perhaps bottomless ground could help, because it's going to be a little tough to quicken. And I think Sadler's Joy is a horse who likes it firmer. But I think he'd be more of a backup type to me. I do think last time was the time.
I'm liking our ideas with those two slightly longer prices in here. I think we got a chance with Corelli and Pedro Cara to get things a little bit sexy in this late pick 5. Here's where the late pick 5 starts to get real tricky for me, and I'm hoping you have strong opinions and or something clever in these last couple of races, because I'm afraid I sure don't. Race 10, we've got 2-year-old maidens going 6 furlongs on the dirt. We'll let you kick this one off, Nick. What did you come up with in here?
Yeah, strong opinion. I don't know about that. It would have been nice if this race had some proven form, I guess. I actually wish the other turf race was in the place of this one, because I think the Run Happy bonus is getting paid tomorrow. Happy Mac for the Halleckbrods, who obviously are Houstonians. So's Mattress Mac, and they have a Run Happy who's half to Chancelot, who's breaking from the 10. That's the 6th race. But this is the race at hand. Look, I mean, you have big pedigrees in here with Zayn Alarab, the 5, and to a lesser extent, I would say Lenlow Lady. Zayn Alarab looks to be training very well. Chad Brown trained Delightful Joy, the dam, who was a grade 3 winner. She was a debut winner as well, actually at 16-1 at Gulfstream. Also, apparently good works on the 3 Jouster. We'll see a little bit more from the DRF clockers later on. The 2 Always Karina, also for Chad Brown, is a half to Structor, who was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf winner last year, but there was always some conversation about him running on the dirt and potentially being better on the dirt. I think it's probably going to be one of those. The proven horses, the experienced horses in here, they don't look very good. And I hate to be dismissive of them, but, they don't have a whole heck of a lot to offer. So I think the race that Rookery comes out of was just a total collapse at the end. And those horses generally don't improve second time out. Same thing with Spun d'Etat. The Lady Lily Modine race didn't come back fast and didn't look very impressive. So I'm going to focus on the firsters and plan on one of the 2 leading trainers at the meet, more than likely getting the job done.
That's exactly how I saw it. 2, 3, 5 in any order. The workout, I haven't seen a workout report like you say, but just looking at the workout tab, they look like they can run. And while I don't love betting, or I don't love keying Chad Brown first time out sprinters, I think you got to put prejudices like that aside when you, based on the individual composition of a field. I'm always trying to find ones that have run to beat horses like these 3, but I'm exactly with you. Nobody's run the par. I can't see reasons in particular why they're going to step up. I think we'll just hope that it becomes a race that's very relevant as far as this training title race between Pletcher and Brown goes. And that'll bring us to our closing race. We've got 3 and up New York bred allowance going 6.5 on the dirt. And once again, this is one where I was hoping for a little creativity. I was looking at it and thinking that Eloquent Speaker might be able to get a perfect trip. I like that race 2 back, especially sitting off speed and being able to finish. And then it looked to me like Flash Packin' Barbie might be the best of the speed, just looking at pace figures drawn inside the main pace rival, apparently in Midnight Surprise. I was just looking at 3-6, but I'm hoping for some creativity to get in the mix here as well.
Yeah, I mean, those were the main two to me. Eloquent Speaker was entered in a similar race here a couple of weeks ago and scratched, and she was going to be probably 2-5 in that race. It's the race that Bustin' Scones exits. That was won by Single Verse. And Eloquent Speaker had the outside post in a field of 7. You wondered if something had gone wrong that kept her from running that day, and there was not a workout put in around the same time. So it's a little disconcerting, but this is a horse who, if you're going to base it on what they've done on the track, then she's the horse to beat by far. Flashback and Barbie has come back from this long layoff. I think an improved horse, showed obviously a ton of ability at the beginning of her career, and clearly things went wrong physically. But I think her last 2 races have been excellent. And the second behind Jewel of Arabia is easily a strong enough running line to be considered a major player. Midnight Surprise is a horse I think it's going to get a lot of money. I'm not sure how much I want to trust that maiden win. It was a weak field where the favorite was scratched shortly before post time. That was a favorite that actually came back to underperform on Wednesday at Saratoga. The interesting price horse to me was Miss Jimmy, the 8, who comes in from Finger Lakes. Obviously, Finger Lake shippers are capable at Saratoga. This horse did not have the cleanest of trips last time, got into some trouble around the turn, and is probably a type that just needs to settle and make one run. It does feel as if there's enough pace in here to set up her late bid, and she's going to be 10 or 12 to 1. I also think Dylan Davis has quietly put together a great meet and has been putting forth a lot of terrific rides, has certainly been a lot more aggressive than he's been in the past. And that works in dirt racing in this country. So I thought that Miss Jimmy was the alternative, perhaps even one that I would upgrade to an A, given that it doesn't look like our main horses in the sequence are really, that column is not too plentiful.
Well, that's great stuff, Nick, and I like that idea of including Miss Jimmy into the mix in the nightcap. Before we let you get out of here, I didn't prep you for this, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to handle it on the fly. I want to get your best bet on the Saratoga card. Maybe something we'll cut out as a little video and send around on Twitter. Could be in one of the races we talked about on this week's RacingPicks.com Players Podcast, or it could be perhaps one you mentioned in passing in another race. Who do you like best on this Saratoga card from here?
Yeah, let's make it Happy Mac and the 10 horse in the 6th race, first timer by Run Happy, looking to become the second debut winner, but most importantly, the first maiden special weight winner at Saratoga and get the Halleck Broads $100,000 bonus. This is a horse that went for, I think, $360,000 as a half to Chancelot, who of course had done some good things by the point that this horse was purchased. So yeah, we'll see if he can get the job. It's been a heck of a meet for Steve Asmussen with 2-year-olds, and this would just be another one to add to the kitty.
Definitely worth paying attention to. For much more from Nick, obviously you can check him out whenever he's on the In the Money airwaves, but go over to stevebick.com and get his daily Saratoga analysis. It's much read stuff. You can follow him on Twitter as well at ntam1215. Nick Tammaro, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Pete. Good luck, everybody.
Do you like free money? I've always wanted to do one of those kind of aggressive, crazy Eddie lead-ins to one of our ads, but I'm actually serious. Do you like free money? Because we have 3 ADW partners right now that are giving you the chance to get it. And the reason I'm doing this plea in this way now is because I know many of you listening and watching are going to have friends come out of the woodwork next week to ask you to help them to bet the Kentucky Derby. That's fine. You can give them your opinion. You can tell them 'tis the law is the cinch of a lifetime, or give them some wise guy horse to come and run in underneath, or even win the thing. But the advice you're going to give them, that's going to be the best advice you're going to give them, is to sign up for one of these 3 ADW accounts that we're partnering with right now to take advantage of, well, I said it before, free money. We'll start off with twinspires.com. They're one of the proper sponsors of this show. ITM 200 gets you a free $200 bet. That's pretty exciting stuff that I think anybody would want on this year's Kentucky Derby. Twinspires.com or the Twinspires app, and you use that code ITM200. Also, very, very significantly, by numbers, incredibly impressive offer, First Bet. If you're a new First Bet customer, you can get up to $1,000 back in the form of a 10% rebate on your action for new customers as well. So First Bet app, go there, sign up, and you'll be able to put in the promo code ITM1000 and get that 10% rebate. It's a fantastic offer. This would be, if you don't already have an Express Bet or First Bet account, sign up with the First Bet app. And last but not least, we have our old pals at Naira Bets. and we still have a $200 deposit match. This one comes through our friend Spencer Luganbuehl over at the Redboard Rewind podcast. So the promo code over at Naira Bets or the Naira Bets app to get your free money is simply Rewind. 3 opportunities to get free money. Bet the Derby. Encourage your friends and family to do so too. Not only is it helping them, but it's really helping us. And we always say, support us, support our partners. Those are our 3 ADW offers right now, and we hope you'll take advantage. Enjoy the rest of the show. Next up on our RacingPicks.com Players podcast, we have a returning guest. You know him from the fine work he does over at InTheMoneyPodcast.com, covering Woodbine week in, week out. He's also the business manager over at In the Money Media, so you've heard his name many times. He appears to have a very austere background today. He's Drew Coatney. Drew, where are you? You're not being held in captivity. You're not going to start blinking Morse code with your eyes or anything, are you?
I don't know. We may PTF. Dining room action right now. Office under construction. Considering the state of affairs the world is in, I figured it was time to upgrade from the 70s style that it was. Bring us into a little bit more modern feel. So it's going to turn into the horse room here pretty soon. So we'll get a TV, a couple chairs, and a bar down there as well. So who knows? We may be having Bloody Marys next Friday. I
like the sound of it, my friend. You mentioned the 70s. Good decade. We had 3 Triple Crown winners. We may have 3 Triple Crown winners in this decade as well as things. I guess that's not technically true. Well, it depends if you're one of those is 20 the 10th year of the previous decade kind of people. If you are, which I kind of am, then you're good to go. You know, there was no year 0. Anyway, we're off on a crazy tangent. We're here to talk about Woodbine's late pick 4 on Saturday, and things kick off with a graded stakes race, the featured race on the card. And I think just based on our quick conversation off air, we may have a little bit of disagreement on this one. Before we dive in, actually, Drew, give folks an idea of when your work on InTheMoneyPodcast.com is going to be dropping this week.
Yeah. I typically do the morning of. Helps me get some scratches in, understand it. It's always the late pick 4 or a pick 3 sequence that I feel pretty strongly about. So typically the morning of, and I think it's really important to note, tomorrow, 80% forecast of rain, mainly in the morning. So if you don't follow at Woodbine Racing Track updates, they'll give you all of the information right before the races start. So highly recommend that because it may play very well into this grade 3 we're about to talk about.
Good info there. It starts with the grade 3 Ontario Colleen Stakes going a mile on the Woodbine turf. Drew, I'll let you kick things off.
Yeah, I looked at Walking Marrakesh, and I think it starts with Walking Marrakesh here. And I look at the Keeneland race, the Appalachian Grade 2, and the winner was kind of an upside horse, Enola Gay. Won a maiden, came back, ran in the listed stakes, and then won at the Appalachian, beating Alms, a very short-priced horse on the day. And those type of races never get me excited to sign up for those who come out of that race. Now, is this group soft here today? Softer than that Enola Gay and Alms group? Absolutely. But I think it offers a little bit of value because of the overreaction in the market that they're going to see Keeneland, they're going to see Alms, they're going to see Enola Gay, and all of the class there. And when I look at on paper, I'm going to the number 5 Diamond Sparkles. Ran okay last out, and I think just has solid figures that are just going to keep progressing. Remember, this is the 4th horse Cassie has signed up for this race here. And I think it's interesting that Hernandez, the leading rider, gets the spot here. Maybe I have no idea what politics are at play, but this Gary Barber-owned horse, they had high hopes shipping over from across the pond to dump into some graded stakes, one of which with Walking Marrakesh, and ran respectably. So I think this one's just lost its way a little bit, and we might be able to get a great price on this horse at 8-1 or higher. That's where I'm at. Where's your head at, Pete?
I think Walking Marrakesh is the one you want here. I feel like a lot of this field is going to end up having something to find in terms of form and figures. I really liked the race last time at Keeneland. making that move into the hottest part of the race and just going down to Enola Gay. Now, Enola Gay didn't do much for the form in the race back, but I really wasn't happy with the tactics and trip Enola Gay employed that day. So I'm going to just sort of excuse that, and I'm going to evaluate Enola Gay on what I thought she was heading into that. And that form, to me, is just better than these. And you have you do have the forecasting runners, which always does make you think a little bit about team tactics. And Walking Marrakesh isn't going to be on the team, but I'm not sure that it matters. I think she's got the speed to secure a good spot and the finish to pass them all in the lane. We'll revisit this, I think, when it comes down to our head-to-head segment at the end of our little portion of the show today. But for me, it's as simple as walk in Marrakesh and move on. You have anything else about that one, or should we move it on down the line and come back to it at the end?
Let's come back to it at the end.
All right, sounds good. Race number 8. We've got a very pricey maiden special weight going 5.5 on the synthetic. What do you like in here, Drew?
I like another good price here. I think the SoCal Invader doesn't scare me that much, only because it doesn't look like there's a lot of speed in that form. And I think that's going to get a wide trip because I've talked about it here as well. The short 5.5, that turn comes up quick, and being parked wide for that SoCal Invader, which, let me pull up the form and make mention of that horse, is
Fabiola. Ex-Jack Carava. I agree. Normally, it's like I want to be you're going to a sprint, and I'm thinking it's going to be a Southern California horse. There's going to be a ton of speed. Not the case in Fabiola's PP lines at 2-1 with as far back as this one's projected to be, going 5.5 on the synthetic. I thought Fabiola was an easy fade.
Yeah, absolutely. So then that landed me on the 3. Neptune's Pearl. I think the distance is going to hit right between the eyes. The 6 kind of looking a little too taxing, got caught in the pace duel. Came out of the 8 hole. So today is drawn more inside on the 3, and put up a really great work on August 1st. So I'm hoping that we'll take back to the poly on the all-weather surface here today. I think all
Tapeta.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I always call it all weather. It's interchangeable. We'll have to have a lesson on the difference.
All weather is okay. You can say all weather for Tapeta, but you can't call Tapeta poly, and you can't call poly Tapeta. It's one of those. They both fall under the rubric of all weather, though. I'm with you on Neptune's Pearl, 100% on the pace angle mainly. This is one I don't think the 8-1 is going to materialize to the point where this is a horse I'd love to try to get alive to in blind pools. In other words, before people could even see the money in the double, I wouldn't mind maybe starting a pick 3 in the 6th race and getting through the Colleen and try to pay off to this one, because and that's interesting that you landing on the same one does give me even a little bit more pause that maybe Neptune's Pearl is going to take a lot of money. But for me, I thought it was quite possibly as simple as her. Did you have any you wanted to mention as possible backups at this stage?
Yeah, I think you'll see Bunchkins take some money too, drawing wide. But again, those turns are so taxing over at Woodbine. So as I pull up my PPs here to try and figure out the exact post number of Bunchkins. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be sitting off the hip of our horse. I think it'll take a little bit of money. Might want to have a little bit of a backup there.
All right, a little bit of Bunchkins for you. We both like Neptune's Pearl in race number 8. We'll move on to race number 9. We've got a starter allowance going 1.5 miles on the turf. Curious to see if you have anything creative in here, because I was not. I just thought number 2, Artistico, might be better than today's rivals. I thought that was an unusual race flow last time, making a move into the fast part of the race, but then more than just staying on late, according to pace figures, maybe even quickening a little bit late. I think Artistico might have finally found what he really wants to be doing and could take a lot of beating in this 9th race at Woodbine. How did you see it?
Yeah, that last race was weird. It was almost as if 2 races were run. You had a front-running pack with like 5 or 6 horses about 8 lengths ahead of where the winners were. And Artistico, and the horse I'm siding with, I love Artistico. I think if you're in Maltese, you need to be using Artistico as well. But I did like There Goes JoJo kind of cycling up on form as well. And I looked back and said, you know what? I think the form of There Goes JoJo, if all things are ready to go, is a little bit better than Artistico. One thing I did have to say was people were going to say, look at the crowded start 4 to 5 wide early on for There Goes JoJo. And in these marathons, I go back to that adage, there's no bad trips in slow races. And I think that kind of holds true with marathons. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it depends. It would all depend on. I mean, I evaluate a marathon and how fast it is a little bit differently. I'm not going to be as focused on the final time, but when I see a race where they finished up it with good closing sectionals, I'm more apt to rate the pace and quality of a marathon looking at like late pace alone than I am just final figure, if that makes any sense.
Yep, that does. And I did have one other horse to mention in here that could be a good exotic use. Kitten's Boy, the number 8 at 12-1. You'll look at those PPs and you'll say, well, claiming 25K, the class isn't there. The speed figures aren't there. But if you start to look back farther, there's been a couple trainer changes, right? But at the longer distances, posted some pretty good buyer figures. I don't know. I think at a good price, this one might sit nearer towards the front and be able to carry on. Again, that claiming 25 bunch was a salty bunch. Might be able to hit the board here, considering 3 of the last 6 starts at Woodbine have been in the money.
It's an interesting idea just on pedigree alone. It's odd that this one hasn't run more farther, given that we've got a Samsung pedigree and just being by Kitten's Joy alone, who we've seen obviously, making noise in English classics. I like that Kitten's Boy as an include underneath. I mean, it's a bit of a guess, but I think it's a smart guess at a price. I like Artistico. I think you've talked me into backing up with your 2 though in this 9th race at Woodbine. And from there we move on to our nightcap maiden claimers, $15,000, 6.5 on the Tapita. Where did you head in here, Drew?
Yeah, I think we're going to get paid by being spread a little wide here. I think the 5 Attention Seeker has those solid figures, a good foundation of fitness, gets the blinkers for the first time in a little class relief, which a lot of these are getting. Shanghai Kimmy, the number 7 at 4-1, another speed who should be near it. And again, I like when they have that fitness foundation. There's been a couple times that they've already run and trying to figure things out. As I think most handicappers do. So I don't think that's very insightful. But the one I land on here is number 3, Erica's On Board. And you were in the back of my head as I was looking at this because, got eased off. Who's going to actually go back and bet this horse? But if you look at the workout tab, it's almost like it hasn't been able to put it together in the afternoon. And I love when a horse debuts, shows speed and fades, and then that's a great angle to bet back. Maidens don't love to pass each other. We kind of know that. That's a adage that's stuck into handicapping. So why not take a horse that's drawn towards the rail who could show speed and just get loose and never look back? At 20-1, number 3, Erica's On Board is where I'm landing. But again, spreading 5, 7, and 8.
5, 7, 8. 3 is your A basically, and then you've got 5, 7, and 8. I would elevate the 7 Shanghai Kimmy to an A. This horse will probably go favored, but I just think it looks so tough back on synthetic, where she's done by far her best running. And this is a meaningful class drop. I thought would get a good trip on or near, but it is the type of race just in its condition alone, being a maiden claimer, where having more horses than fewer is probably wise. So I could see myself maybe with a single A Shanghai Kimmy, but using all of yours. I mean, I don't really get Erica's On Board based on pace figures, but I've seen you before on this very show mention these 20-1 types that end up running absolutely huge. So I'll defer to you and keep Erica's On Board as a B. Before we get out of here, though, Drew, I do want to keep our head-to-head challenge going. And I think the obvious spot for it, given our respective opinions, is back in the Ontario Colleen, which goes as race number 7 at Woodbine on Saturday. I'm all about Walk-In Marrakesh. I think Walk-In Marrakesh really should prove to be the class of this field, a pick on form and figures, but also potentially on trip, where I think she'll sit just off and finish them all. I don't think it would be fair to do one horse head-to-head against this one. I'll give you 3. How about that?
Wow, that's really generous. I feel like this is almost a form reversal of you and JK's head-to-head. It's like, you can't quite get any a good batting average in the show, so you go down to the minors and start beating up on
That's not very kind to yourself, and it's too kind to JK. But it is.
Oh yeah, sorry. Let's cut that out, please. All right, so I think we're staying with Diamond Sparkles. 260, the number 4, could loose leader candidate, potentially never been on the turf, so who knows what's going to happen there.
And then I'll go that one.
Sorry, say that again.
I'm a little scared of 260 for that reason. It could be loose and lonely out there.
Yep. And then number 1, A.B. Samurai for Carol Josie, firing away at 25% at the meet. So
that's Josie Carroll. Now you can't be covering Woodbine for us and getting that name wrong.
Oh man. So what is it today? 2 strikes now. Where's my 3rd strike? The first one coming from Tepida, bourbon, not whiskey, something along those lines.
You'll be okay. There you have it. There's our head-to-head for this week. I've got Walkin' Marrakesh. Drew will take AV's Samurai, 260, and Diamond Sparkles. We'll see what happens in the Ontario Colleen on Saturday night. Actually, it's not Saturday night. It's really Saturday afternoon, 4:17 Eastern, the scheduled post time. Very good stuff at Woodbine to supplement wherever you're playing on Saturday. Drew Coatney, thank you so much for your time today. We'll check you out over at InTheMoneyPodcast.com. And we need to catch up. We got some new partners to chase down.
I love it. May you win all your photos. I stole it before you did.
That's strike 3. Today's show is also brought to you in part by our friends from Stable Duel. This is a really cool new way to play the horses, blending fantasy sports with traditional horse playing, a different kind of contest. That's really a lot of fun. You can get more information over at StableDuel.com, but really what you're going to want to do is download the Stable Duel app to play. Take a look at the wide selection of games on there at various price points. Lots of great opportunities. Download the Stable Duel app. Last but not least, on this week's edition of the RacingPicks.com Players Podcast, we have a young and talented horse player who's making a bit of a name for himself in the contest world. Tyler Hoffman, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Pete. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Now, I want folks to see the T-shirt you're wearing before we start. We don't have the framing quite right to get it, so you're going to have to physically tilt your camera down so we can show up. Or I guess you could stand up if that's easier.
Only for you, Pete.
There it is. I'm alive in the Pick 5. I have to put in the plug now. I'm just wired this way. oldsmokeclothing.com, folks. Go under the partners tab. Actually, the easier thing to do is go to inthemoneypodcast.com/oldsmoke. That takes you right to all of our shirts, including I'm Alive in the Pick 5. Use the promo code MONEY if you want the free shipping. But how have you been making out this summer at Del Mar?
It's been a great Del Mar summer. My dad and I have been playing together, and we've had a lot of success. We caught a really, really big 5-figure Pick 5 score to start the meet. And it's pretty much carried the bankroll throughout. And we've had a lot of fun playing the various contests that have been available on the ADWs on different sites. So as far as being quarantined at home, this is about as good as you can get it. If I'm still going.
I like it. I like making the best of a tricky situation, and getting to spend family time and betting horses are two of the things that I know have kept me going during this trying 2020. It's good to see that's the same for you. We're going to talk about this late Pick 5 at Del Mar on Saturday in a minute, but I want to start off with a Kentucky Derby question, because I know you are a big fan of a horse that Frank Scottoni mentioned. I think it was last year's Pacific Classic pod, the first time this equine's name was ever uttered on our airwaves, and that's Honor A.P. Are you still a big Honor A.P. fan? Can you tell me what was going on in the last race, and what do you expect is going to happen on the first Saturday in September, 1 week from this Saturday?
So Honor A.P. was a horse that Frank and I discovered at Del Mar 2019, and we certainly had high hopes for him. When he won the Santa Anita Derby, that was kind of what we had figured was going to happen. It just took a little bit of time to get there. The last race at Del Mar, I think, was just an experiment. It was just a prep. They just were pumping speed into him. I think they had no intention of actually trying to win that race. It didn't matter to them. With that being said, while I still like him, I'd be lying if I said Tizzolata didn't make me nervous. I mean, Tizzolata looks absolutely awesome. So my enthusiasm for how much I loved Honor A.P. has wavered slightly. But with that said, Honor A.P is still going to be a much better value on the first Saturday in September, as weird as that statement is to say. So Honor A.P still will be my bet. And obviously,
what price are you expecting to get?
I would think somewhere between 4-1 and 6-1. I think Honor A.P will probably be the second choice in the wagering. I think a lot of people's smart pick or the sharp pick in the race. If you're looking for value beyond Tis the Law. So maybe we get a little bit more of an overlay. If I got more than 6-1, I'd be ecstatic, but I kind of doubt that we'll get anything higher than that.
I could see it happening depending on what happens. It's already happened by now. Art Collector's last work did feel like the type of thing that might create the kind of media buzz that could make Art Collector the strong second choice. I could see a world in which Honor AP goes off as high as 8-1. You might be right about your 4 to 6 range, but it'll be interesting. But anyway, just a little, we have to do it. You showed your shirt. I'll show mine again. I've got my Kentucky Derby, my pink Kentucky Derby shirt that my mom bought me. So we had to work in some Derby chatter, but let's move on to more pressing matters.
Yes.
We start off with race number 7 at Del Mar on Saturday. This one will go at 8:10, so evening East Coast time. We've got a 3-year-old allowance going a mile on the turf. What did you make of this one, Tyler?
So obviously a very competitive race. We have multiple horses that are exiting the same optional claiming 80,000 non-winners and one other than from August 8th. They all have very similar trips because they were all separated by less than a length on the wire. Ironically, when you go through the trip notes, and I have to plug it, tripnotepros.com. Benny was
just
on
the Monster Pod.
He was. He'd be upset at me if I didn't actually mention something about it on this pod. But we went through it, and going through our notes for this race, there's actually one horse, one filly that had a much bigger trouble comment line than what shows up in the PPs, and that would be the number 1 Beguiled. Her trip note was she was bet strongly off the morning line at 15-1, all the way down to 7-1. And while she had a cozy trip down the backstretch, she was stuck on the rail awaiting a seam at the far turn. And she snuck through an opening between a couple rivals, but was still stuck behind a lineup of about 4 horses past the 8th pole. And she never got out until late. We're talking like the final 150 yards. When she did, she spotted a seam in the 2-path and just exploded. And she just missed. Now, she lost by half a length. Keep in mind the common rivals in this race going to Vegas was 3rd by a neck. Mind Out, the 6 horse, was 2nd by a nose. So to lose by half length, and she's the one that had all the trouble, she was probably best in this race. So she's one that absolutely has to be used in this race as part of the pick 5 sequence, I would think. Beyond that, just as I talked about with Spencer on Redboard Rewind earlier this week, the pillars of handicapping. Pace is one of the biggest pillars, I think, and the most important one when looking at a race. And this race certainly lacks pace. There's not a whole lot there. From a pace standpoint, I'm looking at the 5 big sweep. So a couple things for her. She's never run on the turf before, but they do put in 3 turf workouts, which say the connections have a pretty good idea if she'll take to it. She looks to be speed of the speed on the stretch out to 2 turns. Obviously, Flavien Prat keeps them out. While she is facing open company for the first time, she is a multiple winner. And that distinction is very important because this race is for non-winners of one other than condition. So you're only eligible if you're a multiple winner in here if you haven't gotten to this condition or you haven't run on the surface before. Since all of her races are state-bred company for stakes races, even though technically that's a higher caliber race, it's for the state-bred condition. So this open company she's eligible for. So I think that's a big deal in this race.
I was looking at big sweep off the pace angle. I had one crazy one to mention, and this horse might not really be able to run, but the number 8, Avenue de France, is another who had at least, now I know the horse was basically eased last time, but at least showed a little bit of tactical foot. We've seen Leonard Powell do so well with the shippers from France before. Do you give this one any count? And I'm hoping that the number is going to be bigger than the 8-1 in the morning line.
Oh, I think it'll be much bigger than the 8-1 morning line. She ran a weird race because she comes out of the common race with number 4 over attracted. And she looked fine running down the backstretch. And then the jock just seemed to give up. And there was nothing there that said why or what went wrong there. Obviously, it preceded a layoff. And I don't know what to make of it. It's certainly a wild card. Every time you have a foreign horse, even if it's making, his or her second start in the country, so long as they didn't come fresh off the trip. So say they, in this case, she had last ran in September of 2019 in France. So when they brought her over to North America, she'd had some time to acclimate. So I don't think the bounce factor plays as big a role here as it would had she come over in, let's say, May of 2020, immediately ran in June of 2020, like she did at San Anita, and now is trying to run back a couple months later. Yeah. So yeah, she certainly is an oddball and a wild card in this race. I personally don't like her that much, just because she didn't show me enough in that tape, and I don't think she, from a pace standpoint, I think she can only mess up the pace. So if she's laying off the pace, that just, to me, makes Big Sweep, has a lonelier lead up front. So that's not one that I'm really looking to use. I mean, to me, in a pick 5 sequence here, I'm probably 4 deep. Beguiled and Big Sweep being the keys. Going to Vegas for the exact same rationale that I had talked about for Big Sweep, and that is a multiple winner in this race, despite it being a non-winner of one other than condition. And then Karakovo, I think the 7 horse is somebody that you have to use, making the equipment change and dropping down from Graded Stakes Company to this softer spot. Obviously, Umberto Rispoli is winning like 99% of all turf races it seems at Delmar. So leaving that at the first leg of a pick 5 feels kind of silly. Don't particularly like the horse because she hasn't shown anything in a long time, but one that has to be used on a coverage play.
Krokovoc is so talented, but I agree. Positionally, this would be one of Rispoli's better tricks if he can make it happen. Let's move on, Tyler, to our 8th race. We've got a 3-and-up allowance going 5.5 on the dirt. How are we going to keep alive in this pick 5?
Well, again, it's another race that's not particularly, I think, exciting. And from a price standpoint in here, I haven't seen the morning lines yet. The race to me starts with the Baffert runner on the rail who had the long layoff, came back last time for the option claiming 40, won by a neck, but it was impressive in the fact that he took all the heat up front. There was a 4-horse, speed duel. He kicked away and he gamely held off. And the part about it that is misleading or not known to many people, despite the fact that he's lost the whip at the 8th pole, Drayton Van didn't just lose the whip. I mean, he threw the thing into the infield grass. That thing went so far. And so that was a hand ride the final 1/8 of a mile, while holding off a Miller runner and a couple other rivals. So obviously impressive. I don't understand why Baffert is showing turf workouts with this one. He had a turf workout before the last race and another one after it. Not really his MO from a workout standpoint. So it's leery, but certainly is the speed of the speed in the race and needs to be used. My number 1 pick in the race would be on the outside, which is number 7, Desert Law for Carla Gaines. Coming out of the Bing Crosby race and dropping back in class, I think that last time was a mistake by Victor Espinoza. He tried to go to the lead, and for those of you that remember the Bing Crosby, that was a suicidal pace up front that set it up for the winner.
Collusion Illusion.
And Lysitonian, who was laying last in the race. I mean, that was a 5-horse ding dong and speed duel, and Desert Law had no chance. My guess is today with JJ Hernandez and breaking from the outside post position, which typically in the Del Mar sprints, you want to be on the middle to outer half of the racetrack. The inside is just not quite as good. I think he's laying off the pace a little bit, probably sitting 3 or 4 wide, maybe 2 lengths off the pace, and we'll make a nice run from there. So those are kind of the 2 I'm focusing on. If I had to have a 3rd horse, because again, this is more of a coverage race for me, and we'll talk about why my rationale is for that in the ticket. Tiger Dad is the other one, who I think is shown sneaky form over the years, will be forwardly placed, probably sits right off of number 1 Micro Rhythms.
So you like the 7 Desert Law best. I love your case for that one. 6-1 on the morning line. The 1 Micro Rhythms that include who you're a little bit concerned about in terms of trip and how track typically plays, and the 6 Tiger Dad. And yeah, I love that. I love that you looked at it in terms of your ticket construction. We'll come back to that at the end of the conversation for sure. But let's roll through the other 3 legs first, which the next one up is our 9th race, a 3-and-up allowance, going 1 mile and a 16th on the Del Mar turf. Where did you land?
So this is a very interesting race because you have a lot of rivals coming out of the same common race. So that'd be the July 27th optional claiming 62.5. And there's one rival in particular that I cannot explain the last race, and that is the winner of that race, number 4 Order in Law. Where the pace came from last time and the guts that this one showed, I have absolutely no idea. When at Trip No Pros, we're always talking about horse comfort. We're constantly mentioning it in every single one of our appearances on the radio podcast, etc. And horse comfort wise, this horse had his ears pricked forward, was completely happy up front, took pace pressure from a common rival in the race, number 6, King of Speed, and it really didn't matter. Kicked away smartly and held everybody off, and in fact was drawn off again at the wire. If that performance is repeated, and I don't even know that it's possible to be on the front end because it looks to me like there's other pace in here, that's certainly part of the contention. What is Order in Law on the morning line?
Order in Law is 6-1. There are several runners projected to be ahead of Order in Law on the pace projector this time. And interestingly, the last race was coded blue on Timeform US for those first 2 fractions. So my knee jerk is to want to fade, but you're making some good points that are making me reconsider.
I wouldn't say he's my number 1 pick in the race, but he's certainly someone that has to be used for nothing else from a visual standpoint of I don't know where that race came from, and I don't want to get beat by something that I can't explain. A lot of times we talk about a term that we use in my family called fuzzy logic. That horse fits the build of a fuzzy logic horse because you can't quite figure out, you don't really like him, but you don't dislike him, and you can't prove why he did what he did. Again, this is more coverage race for me as well. I think One Bad Boy coming off the long year layoff is the best inside speed. The one time he ran on the turf course when he broke his maiden back at San Anita in April of 2019 is a must use in here. Hasn't run back on the turf since then. So that looks to me like the speed of the speed. As you know, I'm a pace handicapper, so I always want to be in front, especially anytime I'm covering a race and a multi-race wager. I think it's silly not to be on the front end, especially if somebody else doesn't go.
Yep.
Untamed Domain, the 7, is one who it doesn't look like much in the form because he ran last. And they said pulled to the 11th, 16th, and the 5/8, which is actually an accurate comment as far as the chart color goes. It was incredibly rank throughout, but closed better than you would think. I mean, came home in 22 3/5. And as we know, I mean, the average for a closing quarter kick is 24 seconds. Well, 22 3 is very respectable for a horse that ran last and had so much wasted energy on the backstretch. So definitely those 3, and then Bordertown would be my other one, number 9. Bordertown was so sharp coming out of the May 24th race when it beat winners for the first time. And I don't know what's happened the last 2 races. Just hasn't shown the same talent that it seemed to be progressing to. I think it's certainly a must use because it has the talent if he can put it back together. So those are kind of the 4 that I'm looking at in the race. If I had to make a number 1 pick, it's probably One Bad Boy, hoping that he just relished the turf when he broke his maiden and he'll go wire to wire in here.
He's got those back races. So just to recap those numbers for you, was that 3, 4, 7, and 9?
Correct.
Excellent. All right, let's move things on to our graded stakes race. It's a Breeders' Cup win and you're in. The 7 furlong Grade 2. Pat O'Brien. I'm very curious to hear where you landed in this spot.
So this one is pretty simple for me. And this is where we're going to make the stand in the pick 5 sequence. And it's going to be with number 5, CZ Rocket. Now, I'm going to make a statement that is going to make a lot of people question my sanity. Because right now, I believe that this horse is who's going to complete the exacta in the Breeders' Cup Sprint behind Volatile. I think that this horse is an absolute follow. Again, the trainer's Peter Miller, and I'm going to let that go for it is what it is. I can't explain what adjustments have been made since the claim for 40 on April 30th at Oakland Park, but this gelding has made a mockery of 3 straight fields. And he's broken the track record in 2 of those 3 races, including the race last time where he missed the start, tugged his way up the rail, then just paused on the far turn almost to catch his breath, it appeared. I mean, there wasn't any traffic. He just idled for a second. And then he angled out and went right by the early pace setter to break the track record at Keeneland. And while he did so, was pretty much in hand and flipped those ears forward. A repeat of that performance, I think this race is over. I really, really believe it. I think he's going to sit probably 3rd or 4th. He's going to get that outside stalking trip at Del Mar that has been so successful all meet long. You get Flavion Pratt to take the call. When I look at this race from top to bottom, I don't think there's a ton of horses in sharp form. We have a lot of question marks. The rail horse Law Abiding Citizen ran a terrific race in the Bing Crosby. I mean, almost too good to lose, and fought tenaciously. He's probably the pace setter. Abel's Cedillo is typically an aggressive send jockey from the gate. He's going to go out there. PR Radio Star for Little Red Feather. While I love what they're doing here and I love the connections, this feels like shooting the moon to me that I think they're going to miss. Well, I think he obviously loves Del Mar and Sharp. I don't see it in this spot. This to me is a totally different angle than what they were doing with Red King when they won the Del Mar handicap last weekend. The obvious horse to beat, and probably the most likely favorite, I'd imagine on the morning lines, the favorite is number 4, Flagstaff.
Yes.
So I think just bounced last time in the Grade 2 Triple Bend. That's the horse that CZ Rocket's going to have to beat. If people are playing bigger tickets, you probably got to use those two. But to me, CZ Rocket's a single in this race.
I love the confidence, and I love the bold predictions about the future. I have to, being pace-oriented like you, I have to have Lawbine's. Excuse me, I'm having trouble saying this name. I tripped on it like 3 times on Horse Players Happy Hour.
You're not a law-abiding citizen, Pete?
Maybe that's it. Law-abiding citizen. It's something about those middle syllables that you really have to pronounce them. Law-abiding citizen, I think, could get an excellent trip, and I think should have the speed to get out of there and then get off the rail for Cedillo, who, as you pointed out, is aggressive and typically knows what's going on out there. Would you, if your tickets could allow, would you want Law-Abiding Citizen as a backup, or are you like actively opposed?
If I had to have a backup, I'd probably go to Flagstaff. And the reason for that is no matter how this race is run, I don't see Flagstaff letting Law-Abiding Citizen go. When I set up the pace in this race, Law-Abiding Citizen has the lead. Flagstaff is stalking off the flank of him. The 3-year-old Vertical Threat, who I think is incredibly talented, but I think this is, again, I don't think he's ready for this class test. He's probably pushing the pace as well. I'm not sure where PR Radio Star fits. My guess is probably in the pocket behind those 3. And then CZ Rocket is sitting that 5th mid-pack, stalking trip 2 to 3 lengths off the pace. If the race were at 6 furlongs, I'd like Law-Abiding Citizen a lot more. At 7 furlongs, he sports an 0-for-4 record. And I think he does get a little bit leg weary late. Not to say that he can't get there. And again, this is where paying attention to track profile is going to be so important, especially looking at today's card, as well as the early part of tomorrow's card to see if there is any change to the main track profile. Because it does happen.
How's it been playing? How would you describe that it's been playing?
I would say the early part of the meet was completely forwardly placed, outside tracking. So you wanted to be in somewhere between the 4 to 5 path on the far turn, and you wanted to stay that way in the lane. If you were along the rail, you had no chance whatsoever. If you were trying to go wire to wire, you virtually had no chance whatsoever. About 2 weeks ago, a friend of ours, John Lindo, reported that they did some track maintenance. When they did that, they dug up the inside, and I don't know what all that they did to it, but the inside has been better since they did that. But that said, still not great, but we're seeing a lot more wire-to-wire winners. This is a typical pattern at Del Mar summer after summer, in that the beginning of the meet sits that outside tracking trip, then they make an adjustment to the track maintenance, and now the inside's better than it was, and you see some horses go wire-to-wire. And then the last 2 weeks, specifically the Labor Day weekend, it reverts back to the original track profile. So I'm anticipating we're going to see something like that occur again this weekend and obviously closing weekend.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, Law-Abiding Citizen certainly going to be against track profile if it was that earlier track. And you make a great point about the 7 furlongs. I was just thinking this, for a graded stake, there was just such a dearth of speed that I'm going to keep this one on side. But you make a lot of good points, and I love the attention you put into designing these races in your head. That's super valuable
stuff. If he goes wire to wire, I'm going to feel so dumb. Believe me, because no one feels more insulted when it goes wire to wire, and I guarantee I'm going to get a lecture from my dad saying, "How did we miss that one?" But I've been talking to him about this race yet, but I guarantee you, he's thinking the same thing I am with CZ Rocket. We're telepathic in our handicapping. So
that's awesome. That's really cool. We'll talk more about that relationship on a future appearance. But for now, we have 2 more topics, and we're getting close to time. So let's go to the nightcap. This $32,000 claimer going 5 furlongs on the turf. Tyler, how are we going to get paid?
So we're going to go 3 deep in this race. The number 1 pick and where the race starts, actually, I shouldn't say the number 1 pick. It's just where the race starts is with number 2, Blackout, for Peter Miller. Gets the greatest jockey switch of all time to Flavian Pratt from The Apprentice. I think this horse sits the pocket trip, won't be up front like he was last time. So he's a must-use in the race. The number 7, Oliva. Simple elimination handicap, and there's nothing fancy about this, but if you just eliminate this one's dirt races and focus on the turf racing, it's a much better turfer. And again, you get Rispoli to stick around on the surface switch, should be forwardly placed. Umberto's going to do everything he can to get to that rail, get to that pocket trip, and tip out 2-3 wide into the coming off the far turn. So I think it's those 2. And then the only trip play that I thought was very important to mention was number 8, Ultimate Bango, who returns to a sprint on the cutback. And last time, it says steadied upper stretch. That's not the narrative. The narrative is Grinning Tiger was in the race, and a lot of you will remember Grinning Tiger as the 92 to 1 shot winner. at Santa Anita, and that was the horse that basically won me the Santa Anita Derby contest. So Grinning Tiger, I have a soft spot for. Ultimate Bango does not, because Grinning Tiger was ranked throughout and basically took out Ultimate Bango from the start of the race all the way to the 8th pole when he shifted ground, which caused Ultimate Bango to steady and then caused a rival behind him to clip heels and go down.
Oof.
Basically, the jockey on Ultimate Bango, Ruben Fuentes, last time had to be beyond frustrated with this trip, because every time he tried to move, Ultimate Bango lost his action, drifted out, got in his way, made him start and stop, pause. It was a nightmare trip. So I think those three are must-uses, and there's really nobody else in this race I'm afraid of. I think it's as simple as 2-7-8 to close it out for us. So if we get to CZ Rocket and single, we'll hit this pick 5.
I love it. I'm loving your confidence. Any other thoughts on the way these tickets are going to be constructed? Do you use an A/B methodology? How do you typically write the actual bet?
For pick 5s, I typically don't do an ABC methodology, just because I don't know. It seems to cost too much to go with when you have 5 legs that you're trying to organize, and there's always one oddball race anyway. Whereas if a pick 5 is really going to pay, it's because your B or C opinion won. It's not because you had 5 straight A's, in my opinion. So pick 4s are where I do the ABC method. In this race, I think my ticket's about $72 if we go through it. I haven't multiplied it out yet, but it's somewhere around there, 72 or $96. So we'll just try to hit it one time. I think the sequence pays.
Oh.
I'm sorry?
I'll roll through the ticket. I'd love to hear recap it for us.
So we're going to go in the first leg 1, 2, 5, 7 with the 1, 6, 7 with the 3, 4, 7, 9. That's $48 if I'm doing my math right so far. By the single of CZ Rocket, the 5. And then the last leg, we're going to go 2, 7, 8.
2, 7, 8. Yeah, nothing crazy there, but I love the
$72 for 50 cents.
Yeah, I love the look of it. That's fun, and you make a good point about how, depending on what your opinion is, we talk a lot about ticket construction, and I do believe you can increase your edge depending on how much work you do playing different permutations. But sometimes you can keep it simple. And I think a situation like this, where you have a lot of races that you have in focus and a strong single, is a good opportunity to keep the ticket construction pretty simple as well. Well, Tyler, thank you so much. That was great stuff. For more from you, we've got your Twitter there up on screen, at TY Hoffman 6, the number 6. And you're obviously doing work over at Trip No Pros. Anything else? Any other plugs we should throw out there before we let you get out of here today?
Nope, just Trip No Pros, and Trip No Pros.
Your Benny better be pleased with your performance on this show. It was a great blend, and I seriously love your holistic approach to handicapping, weaving in these pillars. I've heard people say that your appearance on Redboard Rewind was a top 3 in the show's more than a year history now. So it's in my queue to go back to listen to. Other folks should check it out as well. You can find that in the money feed or via the Redboard Rewind feed. Of course, we love it when folks subscribe, rate, and review all the shows on the In the Money Network. Tyler, Godspeed with your pick 5 and contest play, and we will have you back on the air very soon.
Thank you so much, Pete. Really appreciate it.
That's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. We'll start off with the thank yous for our guests. We'll begin with Nick Tammaro, Drew Coatney, and Tyler Hoffman. We will also thank the producer of this show, producer Craig Gorbanoff, a.k.a. DJ Unstable, doing a great job just improving the quality of these broadcasts week after week. Kudos to him. Thanks to our partners. We'll start with racingpicks.com, but really everybody who's been with us at any stage during this In the Money media run that we've been on. And we'll start with our 2 founding partners, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and 10 Strike Racing. Godspeed to the 10 Strike runners this weekend. And as for TRF, if you want to support them, no more fun way than to come to our Kentucky Derby party next weekend at Taverna Novo right here in Saratoga Springs. You can get all the details, trfinc.org/players. Most of all, I want to thank all of you, the listeners and viewers, for making these shows so much fun to do. Feel free to hit us up on Twitter or just reach out through inthemoneypodcast.com and check us out over there. We love to interact with you and want to keep this two-way line of communication, this little community of horse players we continue to try to build. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornital. May you win all your photos.
Just me.